Okay, we are live with Jon Vroman, one of my good friends, and I've known Jon forever. So excited about this episode that we're doing. Jon, we've known each other since all the way back in the Cutco days, which was man, it feels like
Just for
forever.
me, decades ago, dude. Yeah.
And through that, one of the things that I always loved about you was you had the platform that you built around the Front Row Foundation. And so I want to introduce our audience to what is Front Row Foundation. We'll talk a little bit about Front Row Dads, and we'll talk about Jon the guy, and some about your life. So can you explain what Front Row Foundation is, first of all, and how you got started with that? Because that was one of the coolest things I've ever participated in.
Yeah, brother. Thank you. And I love talking about it because I think the team is doing such great work, and I'm so grateful to be part of it and just watch it grow. And if I take you back 2005, which is when it all began, it was a group of people who wanted to do good in the world, and we just wanted to use the resources we had to serve people that maybe we felt were in a place where we could lift them up a little bit and help out. And so what we did is we loved Make-A-Wish. We thought that's such a great idea. And then we said, well, what would be our unique take on that? What would be the unique take? And it was to help people that had a life-threatening illness to go to the live event of their dreams from the front row. But the thing that would make us unique is that we wouldn't make it just about a day. We'd make it about a lifestyle. So living life in the front row became a conversation amongst our community. It was something that everybody could participate in, from the people that were donors, the people that were running the organization, and the people that we were helping. Everybody could learn what it meant to live life in the front row, which really means to step up to the things that are most important. Think about if you're front row of your favorite show, you're close to the action. It makes you come alive. You said yes to the moment. You are in a space that lifts you and that you get to lift others. It's awesome to be in the field playing the game. It's also awesome to be cheering people on. And so being in the front row of life is a spirit of putting other people in the spotlight, but getting close to that. And it's a giving spirit, which is where that began. Now, 15 years later, this week, in fact, we're going to be placing in a new executive director for the charity, which I'm excited about.
Congratulations.
And it's been constantly evolving, man. And with guys like you and our mutual friends who've stepped up over the years to help in different ways with time, talent, or treasure, it's really grown, and we've felt the impact that it's had on the recipients and that they've had on our lives.
FrontRowFoundation.com, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Go check it out. It's awesome. You sound amazing, by the way. I really need to get this hooked up so that it actually.
That's right, man. Well, when you spend 25 hours a day on Zoom,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
I do. We were just commenting. We had some of the same setup things. We even have almost a similar snowboard in the backdrop.
So cool, man. So cool. I love those pictures behind you, man. That's really inspiring.
Thank you. I don't have my one of you yet. It's on pre-order.
Yeah, they're on back order. A lot of, ever since this thing hit in March.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And then, after that, you started Front Row Dads, which I thought was super cool because I've always, for better or worse, identified as someone who, I wasn't born, wasn't cut out to be a dad. That being dad is so hard. It's, how could you ever do it right? And finding a community of other entrepreneurial minded, aspirational people who say, you know what, let's do this together. Like, none of us are perfect. We all have flaws. We all have challenges, but we all want to be better in that area. That was special to find. And so thank you for involving me in that. Looking forward to the retreat coming up. And can you tell the audience a little bit about what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, what inspired me was that I was failing. That I had talked a big game about being the best dad who read all the books and was, and the truth is that I was really working hard. I was trying to provide for my family and build this great business and this great charity. And it's tough, being an entrepreneur is tough. Anybody out there who knows what I'm talking about? It's, I remember I left a great job with solid pay, very consistent. And I went out on my own and I spent all my money that I had in savings year one. I went in big debt year two. It got really tough. And then I started to build back up. But after a couple years of like, hey, it's one more season, sweetheart. Hey, I just got to get through this book launch, baby. I promise. I know that, our kids are 2. The good thing is they won't remember that I'm working so hard right now. All of that turned into like my kid was 6 and I had developed this habit of just working really, really, really hard. And it was always one more thing. It was like I was a $5,000 keynote speaker, and then I was a $10,000 keynote speaker, and then I couldn't say no the year that I was a $15,000 keynote speaker. And then how on earth could I say no if I'm a $30,000 keynote speaker, right? And it was because it's always like one more thing. It's always like this next season until it's too late. And about 6 years old, my oldest son, I went to my, I kind of confessed. I was like, I'm not the guy, not the dad that I had dreamt I would be. And then I just thought, well, how have I grown in every other area of my life? Whenever I wanted to write a book I got together with like-minded people. We shared resources. I learned from people who had figured something out that I hadn't. I said, why don't I do that for dads? And so I started that out of desperation with a couple of friends. We just got 30 guys together in Philadelphia in 2016. And it was so great. It was so much what I needed. And there was so much I didn't even know I didn't know. That one of those things where you show up and you're like, I know I'm not doing a great job, but I'm not even sure what I'm missing exactly. And then somebody's like, I do this, and this is how I balance my schedule, and this is how I support my wife, and this is how I love on my kids. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, that wasn't even on my radar, because there's just 1,000 ways to approach it. And when we left there, I thought we got to do more of this. And then it just snowballed. And I think entrepreneurs naturally want to solve problems and figure out more and more ways to serve. And so here we are later, 4 years later, 165 members of the group. Podcast doubled in size over the last 60 days. Things are going great. And I'm just so happy with the direction that it's moving in. And I'm really happy to be working with guys that are committed to being family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. Because the truth is, Isaac, and I know that you know it and I know it and all the guys in the group know it, is that we love our work and we love what we do, but it's easy to hide there. And it's easy to just say one more season until all of a sudden our kids are grown and out of the house and we're like, damn. And we hear that a lot from guys down the road, that they missed their opportunity. My buddy Jim Shields says you get 18 summers with your kids and that's it. My son's 11, in 5 years, he's driving a car, in 7 years, he gets to walk out of the house and, and that's scary to me. So we have a small window at this stage. Now I believe I'm always a dad and I'll always have an impact, but there's a stage and I don't want to miss it.
Well, we all chose our careers probably because we were really good at what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right. And then you contrast that to being a dad, and like nobody's good naturally, I think. At being a dad.
I agree with that, man.
And so it's, we'll naturally default to where we're comfortable, where we feel like we're winning because we want to feel like we're winning. We don't want to spend our days feeling like we're a failure. So we'll spend time and resources and energy getting better at what we're already good at and neglecting what really matters at the end of the day. And so I'm so glad that you did that. What does the future look like for Front Row Dads? Do you have any kind of projections of where you want to take it?
Well, from a business perspective, I think it's fun to think about being the world's largest, organization that serves, businessmen in this way, where lots of guys have their business masterminds. They got EO, they've got, Vistage and all the groups that are great, right? YPO and all these amazing groups that value family. And they'll certainly do family type things, but it's primarily business with a family accent.
Yeah.
And we are primarily family with a business accent. And so I think there's a place for us. It feels like the momentum that we're gaining certainly says there is. Dude, I envision tens of thousands of members all over the world with a very unique structure that we have to our focus. This is a priority thing. Separates us as our priority. And I think it's going to go well.
I love that.
Yeah.
You should probably think bigger though. I mean, it's a little small.
Thanks, man.
Global organization.
Yeah. And from a business perspective, I see it being $100 million organization, which is great. And truth is, I'm really checking my ego on that, because how much do I want to build it just to say, I helped build this big organization? It's like, sure, there's an element of like, it'd be awesome to be able to say that. But the real part of it is I want to empower other people to lead. I just want to be part of it. I said to somebody the other day, I go, what would make me so happy is if 30 years down the road, somebody goes, Front Row Dads changed my life. The Brotherhood's changed my life. And then somebody goes, by the way, who started this whole thing? And then they go, who cares? Right. Yeah. And that would make me so happy that it just doesn't even matter, because it's just it's a gift that we gave to the world. And I hope the same thing happens with Front Row Foundation.
I love that. One of the things that I've struggled with as a dad is being in the moment, being present, you know, especially right now. So much has shifted, so much has changed. There's so much going on to distract us and to try to be aware of, from what's going on economically in our country, what's going on socially in our country, what's going on in our own business, from transitioning from live events to virtual events. And, you know, here's what's happening. Like, we're shifting our whole model. So much going on that it's easy to miss the in the moment things. And you talk about being a moment maker. You know, that's kind of one of your things, the TED talk that you gave, you know, you talked about being a moment maker. And so selfishly, I'd like to ask you, and I guess for a lot of the people that are probably listening, how can we be better moment makers with all of the distractions, all of the things that are going on in the world, in our lives, staying in our own heads? How can we capture those moments? Because it's the little ones. It's the little things that you just catch, like that was special.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a practice. I mean, I think the first thing to make note of is that this is an ongoing practice. This isn't something that we figure out and implement and then it's done. This is an ongoing practice in our lives to be present and be moment makers. And what that really means to be a moment maker is somebody that lifts someone up, or lifts up a moment, or we appreciate a moment so that we bring more energy and attention to it so that we can experience it to its fullest. And I have been horrible of this in the past. In fact, one of the things I was guilty of is that I was doing it so well for the charity, but I wasn't doing it for my family. I mean, one of the years that I'd created the most epic experiences for all these strangers, I was the shittiest gift giver to my wife and my kids. I could tell you what all my clients' dreams and goals were, but I couldn't tell you what my wife cared about, you know, or what her dreams or goals were. I just, you know, I showed up to sit down at the dinner table and eat. And then I thought if I hugged her and kissed her and told her I loved her and supported her or paid the bills, but the truth is the mortgages don't matter really. You know, I mean, I get like a roof over the house. Okay, I get it. But the kids don't go to bed every night saying, man, you know, I know dad was gone all day today, but boy, am I glad he paid that mortgage. Like they're really missing dad and they want him to be present, you know? And so here's what I think it starts with. It starts with an identity, like most things in our lives, Isaac. It's an identity where we start to see ourselves in that way. We start to set an intention. How will we show up in this day? I mean, I give you a real example that happened last night where, as a father, I'm always asking, how can I be a great support to my children? How can I help their best selves emerge? And lately what we've been doing, and we rotate in and out of all these games and these practices because I like to keep it fresh and kids like novelty, is I said to my boys last night, and I've been doing this for the last couple nights, is, hey guys, what were you grateful for today? That's a common question. But what I added was, what's your intention for tomorrow? Right? Like how do you want, I want to know what you want to do because kids love answering that question. But I said, I want to know who you want to be tomorrow. And my son, like, this is a true story. This happened less than 24 hours ago. He said, I want to be loving. I go, cool. What might that look like? Like when you're loving, like what could that look like? What might it feel like to you or to other people? And we talked it out for a quick sec. This is at 9:15 at night, laying in bed while I'm tickling his back. And this morning he woke up and got about the day, and sure enough, man, I was walking upstairs to go to the office, and he comes running after me, and he's like, wait. He goes, I want to give you a hug. And I said, oh, thanks, buddy. I said, I'll always stop for a hug. And he said, I just wanted to do that because it's loving. And I was like, this is great, man. This is so cool. And then, I said, hey, I caught myself because he set his intention, and my intention secretly, which I didn't say out loud, was that I'm going to catch him also in acts being loving. So he was downstairs and he was taking care of, he had a new bearded dragon lizard for his birthday, and he's taking care of his lizard. And I said to Mom, I just called it out. I was like, Mom, isn't it cool how much he loves this bearded dragon? Like, it's so cool that he brings a lot of love to this little reptile called Reptide is his nickname, Reptide, or his name. His actual name is Reptide, Sally, Death Dragon, we gave him like 6 names one day in the car when nobody could agree on his name, and Tiger wanted. So we all agreed that if we can't name him because he had to, we would all pick the middle names. It's hysterical. So he has this really long name. But the point is that here's the deal: how we are present is that number one, we choose an identity, we set an intention, and then like anything, we have to practice it. It's a habit. But like most habits, as you teach, Isaac, as an amazing coach that you are, as somebody who has helped so many high performers, is that oftentimes there is a little bit of gamifying it. There's a way of bringing some fun into it. There's a way of bringing light into these things and making it so that, I made a game how many times I could catch him. Mm-hmm. And that became my game. That became my focus. That became my intent. And then we bring it into life and we just sort of nurture it and we feed it and we water it and it tends to grow. And then you give people permission also, Isaac, to call you out when it's not working. So I've said to my son, hey, if you ever see me not being present with you, call me out on that. My intention is that when I'm with you, I'm really with you. You see me on my phone, you have full rights to call me out. Now, I learned this from maybe Jim Dethmer, who I had on my podcast, about a whole show about being present with Jim Dethmer. He wrote the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. He was just on Tim Ferriss's show. Amazing guy. And one of the things he said is make sure that when you empower somebody like your children to call you out, that you also warn them that when they call you out, you may actually try to defend yourself in that moment. Or that you might even get defensive and perhaps even angry about the fact they called you on your shit. But he goes, then tell your children that even if I respond where I try to defend myself or I get angry or I tell you that you're wrong or go to your room or whatever, or that you're talking back to me, he goes, just know that I will eventually calm down. I will eventually see how what's going on, and I'll come to you and say, thank you. So even just being able to really talk things out in advance to your kids about moments where I am or I'm not present. A lot of it is an honesty with ourselves too, Isaac, because a lot of people say they're present, but they're not, because they're just bullshitting themselves. And there is an element of saying, look, most of us are not present the majority of the day. Think about how many distractions we have. Think about all the noises that something clicks over here and it just grabs our attentions and pulls us out of the moment. And like meditation and like the act of being, meditation is drifting out of being present and coming back. And that's a rep, right? That's a curl, that's a press, that's a strengthening moment when you come back. And as dads, when we are with our kids, most dads are out of the moment. They are not present the majority of the time that they are with their wife and their kids.
Yeah.
But if we can know that and then bring ourselves back with kindness, right? With like, all right, I got lost and I'm back. That you get some reps in.
Oh man. That's really good. And it's getting more and more where people just aren't present ever. You see them walking around. I don't have my phone here, but like this is this perpetual state of being, and oblivious to everything else out here. And so I think it's something that we do need to be really purposeful, really intentional about saying, even for 5 minutes, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be fully present. Let's try that as an exercise.
Yeah.
Be fully present with my family for 5 minutes. And I've given people that exercise. I've given myself that exercise.
Yeah.
It's like, take 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes when you get home, be present, and then see what happens after that. If you have a habit, a pattern of consistently not being present, start with 5 minutes. Don't be like, I'm going to be present.
You are exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Because people say, I want to be more present in my day. And this begins with like 30 seconds of deep listening.
Yeah.
Being present for a minute where somebody's talking and you're like engaging, because it is really challenging to be present all the time. And somebody with their head in their phone, by the way, would say, I'm present to what's on Facebook, right? I'm present to what's on my phone. And you're like, exactly. That's that. What is calling to our attention? What are we captured with? But a lot of this comes back to, can we be honest with ourselves about where are we? Like almost like, where am I? We're not in our bodies anymore. We're not feeling it. We're not actually noticing something. So we are trapped. It might feel like we're present to something, but really we're hijacked by that thing. And being present means that this is a consciousness, right? That is very different than, you could be watching a movie and not be really present. You could just be hijacked. Being fully present to how you feel. People are in arguments all the time and they're this and that. And the truth is, if you said, where do you feel that in your body? They wouldn't know. Right. Because they're not fully present to like, do I have, am I tense in my shoulders? Am I gripping my hands? Has my breathing changed? Like when we are present, we feel things fully, but that also is what we want to do in life. And sometimes we spend time trying to avoid the feelings because they're not good. But boy, if we can get comfortable with the uncomfortableness, then that's where our biggest growth comes from. Yeah.
So if you're watching this, make it a point to just do like 1 minute or 5 minutes of being present today. See how that feels. It's almost like 5 minutes of, you think about something that should seem like meditation. When Miracle Morning first came out, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to do this. That was always the hardest part for me, was the silence. Yeah. Like just quiet yourself for 5 minutes. And you're treading water or doing anything, or like let's just hold a hang, for the pull-up bar for 5 minutes. It's a lot longer than it feels like when you say it in your head. So I got a couple more questions for you. I'm always intrigued with people that have shows, podcasts on what's like one standout, because I hate saying your favorite because then you have to go back through the whole anthology, but what's been one standout podcast you're like, that one was super cool to do? What was like, what are
the ones that I've actually hosted people?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll give you a recent one. I love Zach Bush. I think he is a phenomenal human being with a very important mission. And I just had the privilege of talking with him on the show, and that was so successful with our audience. It really resonated, and I loved that conversation. And he had a really interesting take on being proud of our kids at the end, which was really profound for me. So Zach Bush was really great. I mentioned earlier Jim Dethmer. He would also be one that his was all about being present, and his 15 commitments. His conscious leadership concept is something that I'm all in on. I'm all in for. And it's a methodology taken from many other people over the years, but he packaged it together so beautifully. And I'm really excited about that, because here's something that's important, Isaac, and I think this is relevant to anybody. It's a business owner and a parent, is that when we're looking to improve upon things, we can look at it like content learning or context learning. And the way that Jim presents this, which is so important as a parent, is you can say, my son or my daughter, let's say they're teens and they have a substance abuse issue, and you're like, I need to learn how to deal with a child with a substance abuse issue. That's content learning. It's a specific thing that I need help with, and I need an expert in that space, right? I need a content expert. But Jim and his crew, they're context experts, where they teach us how to think about things, how to process ourselves in the moment. And if you can become a context expert as a parent, if you will, then what that does is it allows you to be a certain way in all these scenarios that most of us don't have any training for. How do you deal with this at 3 years old? How do you deal with that at 7 years old? There's a lot of things that require some content expertise and some research and a just-in-time learning. But the other thing that we need to be always aware of is how we are thinking things through. What is our thinking process? And conscious leadership is a way of approaching things like, am I above or below the line? And I don't know if that's anything you've ever taught your group, but right, when I'm below the line, I'm defensive. I'm always wanting to be right? And when I'm above the line, I'm open, I'm curious. So if we can just know where we are and how that particular state of being shows up and interacts with the world. So to answer I wanted to give a little teaser there, but Jim Dethmer on being present, Zach Bush on the evolved father. And we have on our website at frontrowdads.com a list of our top 10 shows, which I think will be helpful.
Awesome. Sometimes we can't even see the line. Dude, that's where I find myself sometimes.
And that's where being present helps. Yeah. Learning how to identify where we are. If we don't know where we are, or how we feel, or what's going on, that's very difficult to be able to move to where we want to be.
That's fascinating. I'm going to have to check out more of Jim's stuff because we're doing a lot of work with conscious thought leaders right now.
We're going to do some of that, by the way, in Colorado when we're together for our retreat. Yep.
Cool. So with these conscious thought leaders, I've found that there's often one point where there was a shift where they went from just being, I'm just a guy, to I really have this focusing purpose. I really have something that just came up in my life that is, I can't even argue with this thing. It's so compelling that I need to start focusing on and talking about and teaching on this thing. And most of them at that point wouldn't call themselves thought leaders or influencers. In a lot of cases, they wouldn't even call themselves that when everyone else would call them that. But can you point to a time in your life where there was a shift? And we all have multiple shifts, right?
For sure.
That just kind of changed the trajectory of our life, for forever. What's one shift in your life that's been significant, and why?
And do you think do you want me to, because I can pick an era, right?
Sure.
Is it on a specific topic of like when I started the charity or when I started the dads or even back to when I was a kid?
Let's go back to the charity. So at what point did you decide, boy, this is not just a cool idea that we had. Yeah. This is like a direction I want to take this thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's kind of a perfect storm. And I think this will answer it nicely because, so I'd been investing big into coaching programs, and I'm so grateful I did. I would do it 1 million times over, right? Like I went to Tony Robbins' event, spent tens of thousands of dollars over a couple of years. And what I really learned in that organization was about contribution. A lot of times you think it's going to be about how to sell more or make more or whatever, but I didn't expect, and I'm grateful that I got it, was this element of contribution. So now I had this thing that was like, wait a minute, I'm not doing that. That's not really a part of my world, but I want to give. I became present to that fact. Number two, I remember going to a Jason Mraz concert. This might be the actual moment, but I wrote about this in the Front Row Factor book. Is I was in the back row and I looked to the front row and I saw there was a different energy. These girls are dancing and singing in the front, and then in the back, it looked like people were checked out. And I thought how interesting it was that it's the same concert, same song, same moment in time, and yet two people having radically different experiences. Why is that? Well, then I started to think about, well, this is a metaphor for life. This is kind of how we do life. Are we ready to step up? Are we ready to like move to the front and stand up and sing and get engaged and be part of creating an experience, right? Are we ready to be in the moment? Some people in that room wanted to be anywhere other than there, and other people couldn't imagine being anywhere other than there. And so that to me was a very big breakthrough, because I realized that I was living life as a spectator in the back, watching things happen safely in a distance, leaving concerts early because I didn't want to get stuck in traffic and close to just everything was about convenience in my life, but not about adventure, not about memories, not about moments. It was all about easy, right? And safe. How do I not get picked on? And how do I not be the nail that pops up that gets hammered back down? Or how do I not offend anybody, or whatever it would be? It was always about safety. And then I thought, well, the front row, it's tough. Like, front row is not always easy, man. It's elbows and people fighting for space, and how do you get to the bathroom? It's crazy. Like, it's not an easy thing, but boy, is it memorable when you can when you're right there. And how true is that for life? I mean, I say that as a dad going on vacations. People are like, how was vacation? I'm like, vacation? This is not a vacation. This is an adventure, right? Adventure's not easy, right? Meaning can be messy. Purpose can be painful. But my turning point in my life was when I decided to step up. And that's the year I quit my job. I walked away from $100,000 plus job, secure, took the leap. And I'm glad I did, because I couldn't imagine getting to the end of my life, looking back saying, I did it all for safety. Like, that to me. And by the way, that there are some people, by the way, that they can pursue a path of safety and they love it. And I think that's great. But for me, Isaac, that meant death. For me, that safe route meant I don't even want to live if I have to choose that route. I would rather fail time and time again and beat my head against the wall than work for somebody or do a job for something that I don't want to do and just trade all my days and just try to pay the bills and just try to put food in my mouth and just make it to the end. That sounded horrible to me.
Boy.
So that was a turning point.
We were talking about, I was on another call a couple of days ago, and we were talking about how easy it is to get sucked into going through the motions.
Yeah.
Right. And how days, weeks, months, sometimes years go by, and you can look back and go, holy smokes.
Yeah.
I just feel like I woke up. I was just doing the day every day, waking up, surviving, going to bed, waking up, surviving, going to bed, and just checking off the boxes and trying to, trying to survive. And when's the last time I actually lived in the moment? I feel present, and I'm being very purposeful about my experience. And for a lot of people, they can't remember, you know? Yes. And so,
you nailed it.
That's why I love that you're a moment maker, not just for yourself, but you actually light that up in other people, you know, and you help them light it up in other people. So that's really special about you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, so if people have questions, they can find you at frontrowdads.com, frontrowfactor.com.
Yep.
Check out the podcast. Got a couple great books out there. You got a college student. He's got Life in the Front Row for college kids. He's got a TED Talk. Check out Jon Vroman anywhere you can get your hands on something he's done, because he's not only a great business person and a good speaker, but an incredible human being. And you'll be better because you checked him out and got to know him. So I think that was pretty much a wrap. And if you guys have any questions, you can always feel free to email us as well, and we'll get your questions answered. Jon, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man.
All right, take care.